Ladies and gentlemen, you caught me again. Oh, it's me, Caroline. Tonight I'm going to spend 5 minutes in one of my dearest friends, Miss Diana Eden, ladies and gentlemen. Oh, my goodness. Now, Diana, you have had quite a career on Broadway, in Hollywood, in
Yes.
music, in television, and now we're adding author to that, aren't we?
Yeah. I mean, I figured if I kept going, one or two of these careers might stick.
Well, you give me hope then.
Yeah.
Now, you wrote a book called Stars in Their Underwear.
Indeed.
What made you decide to write that book?
Well, when you've seen the stars that I've seen in their underwear, you have to tell the tales, don't you? Um, George Clooney, not too bad. Yeah. um, and of course, the title is a little tongue-in-cheek. It's a little bit about stars behind the scenes when you pull back the curtain and when they're perhaps feeling a little vulnerable themselves.
Now, you're talking mainly about your job as a costumer. You were a costumer to the stars
Indeed.
for a good section of your career.
Yeah, a good section, about 35 years.
Can we go back a little bit before we get to that? Because you and I have so much in common. Now, you were in, for my Broadway students that watch this, you were in a famously terrible show called Hot Spot.
Yes, famously terrible. I mean, it's a classic example of the show that was supposed to be a huge hit and was a massive failure.
And it starred the wonderful Judy Holliday.
Yes.
And
Judy Holliday.
When you find yourself in a show like that, it ran 43 performances on Broadway. All of us have been in bad shows. We've all been in bad shows. Did you know it was a bad show?
Yeah, we did. I mean, we had been out of town and in tryouts forever. And they kept bringing in different directors and different writers, and everybody was trying to fix it. And we never knew, whether the second act came first or this song went here. And we would rehearse all day and then perform at night. And, we knew the show had potential and it had a beloved star, but it never quite worked.
It does speak volumes, I think, to something that a lot of people don't realize, how much work goes into even making a bad show.
Oh, yeah. And money. Oh, my God. Not that it was my money, but hey, yeah. And they kept throwing money at it, and we went through 6 different directors. Do you believe
my goodness.
6 directors.
Who were some of the directors?
Well, our original was Morton DaCosta, who was, big time. And then we had Richard Klein, Arthur Lawrence. They came and went.
And even Bob Fosse was thrown around for
Bob Fosse was supposed to come in and would have, except that all of a sudden, of all the nerve, his wife started going into labor with their daughter, and he had to rush back to New York. I know.
That is not the first time I've heard Gwen Verdon has ruined something. All I'm saying. But luckily, you found a spot on Broadway, and a funny thing happened under the way a funny forum happened. It was a Sondheim show.
Yeah, exactly.
And what was it called?
Just call it Forum. It's easier.
Okay. And that starred the wonderful Zero Mostel.
Yes, also quite a character.
I worked with Zero in Fiddler. I was the understudy for Yenta, known as B. Arthur back then. We were the same type, often up for the same role. But I found Z to be a little bit handsy.
Oh, yes. There were days when he was definitely a little frisky, and the word would go around the company, kind of stay clear of Zero today.
That was every day at Fiddler, my darling. Now, speaking of Zero Mostel,
Yes.
you and I were
Yeah.
up for the same role in Hollywood, and you got it. And it was in a movie called The Producers.
Oh, yes. Yes. Were you up for that too? You would have been so good.
Well, they told me too tall, they said.
Oh, no.
They couldn't
Well,
have anybody taller than Zero. You know what I mean?
yeah, I know. It's awful when they do that, isn't it?
It's the worst.
We're going another way. We're going a different direction. Don't you? You wonder where they're going, you know?
Oftentimes when you don't get a part out of spite, you don't watch the movie to find out who did get the part. You know?
Exactly. Exactly.
My question for you is about The Producers, because we now live in a world where Springtime for Hitler is part of our lexicon.
Yeah.
You walked onto a movie set and found out you were going to be in a scene called Springtime for Hitler.
Yeah. Yeah.
How'd that go?
And we, all of us dancers were kind of, thinking, really? I mean, is this for real? And the choreographer was trying to explain, yes, it's a spoof, and Mel Brooks thinks it'll be funny, and just, hang in there. And, but we really didn't know. I mean, it just, as it was, it did turn out to be very funny. The audience that they filmed watching Springtime for Hitler had the same reaction as people who went to see the movie. They would sit there and glower like, oh, what is this? And then they would start to laugh, and then they would see how silly it was.
Now, my darling, you then went on to meet somebody. And tell me how you got into costuming. That's
okay. Yes, I did meet somebody who was a producer for Ann-Margret when she was doing her big nightclub acts up in Las Vegas. And they needed someone who would look after all the dancers' costumes because the famous Bob Mackie was taking care of Ann-Margret's costumes. So I was brought in, and being a dancer, former dancer, I just took to it like a duck to water. I said, oh, this is great fun. I know what my dancers need, and, rubber on the shoes and fabrics that stretch and lots of TLC. And so that's how I got started.
So you worked one-on-one with the wonderful Bob Mackie.
Indeed, yes. And then I became his assistant for 2 years.
Now, did you ever get to the point with Bob Mackie where you said, ugh, enough with the sequins? Did that ever come up?
Never. See, my stripper name is Sparkle Plenty.
And I would imagine Cher thanks you for that. Oh, my goodness.
I've never seen a rhinestone I didn't love,
Who does? I find them a little gaudy every once in a while, you know what I mean? But it's just, that's me. That's me.
Yes.
More of a casual type gal, me.
Mm.
Now, working with the wonderful Ann-Margret, is she as lovely as everyone says she is?
Absolutely, 100%. She is down to earth. She's funny. She's warm and very, very loyal to her company. If you've been in her company, you're family.
Oh, people forget how long she has been in the business,
Yeah.
It's amazing because she still looks 45 years old, and that's why I don't speak to her anymore. Now, you are famous for, let me start. You are responsible for creating one of the most iconic photos, images in the history of music.
Mm-hmm.
Miss Diana Ross, 1983, Central Park. I was supposed to be there, but I heard there was going to be rain, and I don't like to get this wet.
No, I don't blame you. And it would have gotten very wet. So you made the right decision. But there she was with a massive rainstorm pelting down upon her. And she was in this little itty bitty orange lace jumpsuit. And the wind was, blowing her hair, and it was just incredible. And I knew that if I could get an orange chiffon cape that was down under the stage on her, that it would blow behind her and make a magnificent image. I mean, I just somehow, I didn't realize that it would become the iconic photo that it did become, but I just knew I had to get that chiffon robe on her. And as she was struggling in the wind to get it on, I thought, I'm going to get this thing on her. And I was afraid that she was going to just, give up because it was so hard to get on in the wind. But the moment she had it on, I could see the moment when something clicked. And she said, oh, yeah, I can work this.
She did. I mean, at the point where you Google Diana Ross, it's one of the first images that comes up.
Yeah, yeah.
Just thank you for creating that for us.
Oh, well.
I would be remiss if I didn't ask you about being a costumer for my favorite television show, The Facts of Life. Now,
yes.
Before we talk about that, let me warn my viewers, my students, that Diana is responsible for the costumes for the last 3 seasons.
Right.
When they were fashionable, when they were 80s-tastic, when it was bright, when it was fun, and it was ridiculous.
Thank you for that.
How was working on The Facts of Life?
Well, it was fabulous for a number of reasons. One, it was my very first show as, the costume designer, not somebody's assistant, with my, name on the credits at the end of the show. So it was both scary and really exciting. And then, of course, to be part of that family was amazing because the company had been working together for 5 years when I joined, and they were very welcoming, but it was definitely a family. The same set designer and then producers and backstage staff had all been there.
And the director had been there forever.
The director was there all the way through, yeah, John Boab. So it was a wonderful experience, and I got to work with first Charlotte Rae and then Cloris Leachman. And of course, we all know George Clooney was there.
How do you remain professional with George Clooney in his underwear in front of you?
Well, the thing is, we didn't know he was going to be George Clooney. He was just
you could see
a young goofy actor, Had we known, I might have paid more attention, but he was he was funny. He was easy to get along with. He was goofy. He was, smart. But he wasn't a big star by any means.
No, but he looked the way he did, didn't he?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
I love him. I have to tell you, I was up for the role of Blair in Facts of Life, but
you have the same hair. You would have been perfect.
Yeah, they said too pretty. They didn't want to make the other girls feel bad.
I can see how that would be.
My blessing to Lisa Whelchel,
Yes.
You've been nominated for Emmys for your work on soap operas.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah. Can you believe it? It was wonderful.
Is that harder work than weekly costuming for a sitcom, so to speak?
Oh, definitely harder than for a sitcom. Because you usually have anywhere from 15 to 20 people working every day, and you are working every single day. You're filming. So, it never stops. You're just constantly doing fittings and shopping and getting stuff together, and more people are cast, and then you've got to get them ready. So it's never stops.
Oh, soap operas, I don't think people realize how much work goes into those.
Yeah. And I was lucky to do 2 that required a lot of really original designing. Santa Barbara, we had all sorts of weird situations and fantasies, and I got to do some really fun things. And then Passions, oh my God, Passions had so many elaborate fantasies, that it was wonderful.
Passions was kind of known for being a little,
yeah.
You know what I mean?
It was.
It made you tune in next week. You know what I mean?
Yes. Not everybody loved it, but it certainly gave me a lot of designing to do.
And all such wonderful work. I've often said when you came on Facts of Life, it was like they suddenly had a costume designer
Oh, thank you.
that was listening and that was aware. And that is so important for us performers to have a costumer that listens and cares, I think.
Absolutely. Well, I mean, I always love my actors. I really do. I mean, that may be 1 in 1,000, but generally speaking, I mean, it does bring out a little bit of maternal instincts in me, but professional maternal. I mean, you can't work with an actor without starting to really care about them and to care what they think about and how they feel in their costume. And if they don't feel good, they're not going to be good on camera, you know.
You're absolutely right, my darling.
Yeah.
I have to tell you, I read your book in less than 24 hours. I absolutely devoured it. And I think it's a wonderful read for anybody who's into Broadway history, into Hollywood history, into costume design. There's so many boxes that it ticks off for so many people. And I think it's wonderful.
Thank you. Thank you.
Can I ask you, I want to usually I would play Sophie's Choice with someone now where I give them 2 choices. I'm not going to make you choose between actors or anything.
Okay.
But I just want to throw out some names from the book. And if you could just share a little bit of your experience with those people.
Okay.
The wonderful Cloris Leachman, 8-time Emmy Award winner.
I know. Highly energetic, opinionated, strong-willed, professional, and wonderful.
And good. And she's good at what she does.
Yes. Yes.
Oh, I love that. Reba McEntire. You costumed Reba McEntire for the Country Music Awards.
Yes, before anybody knew who she was. Well, a few people knew, but those outside of the country world, you know, she was up and coming, but I'd never heard of her. Down to earth, generous, kind. When I met her some, I don't know, 10, 12, 15 years after I'd done her outfit, she remembered me instantly. She was like, oh, you know, welcoming an old friend. She didn't have any star, you know, attitude.
Oh, you have to love hearing that about people like Reba.
Yeah.
What about Larry Hagman?
Larry was good fun to work with. He is eccentric, was eccentric. But so what? I mean, you know, he never gave me, well, he gave me a little bit of a hard time, but not really badly, you know. He was great fun. He did love to hold court. He took us all out to dinner and we all heard wonderful stories, and he picked up the check. So, you know.
A lot of that comes from him and his mother being from Texas, the wonderful Mary Martin.
Yes,
I think
he gave me her book when I was at his house. We were actually filming at Larry's house for the last few scenes. He saw me doing some embroidery because I always like to keep my hands busy. And he said, I have something for you. And he went and he pulled down a book that his mother had written on needlecraft and signed it for me and gave it to me.
Ah, do you still have it?
Yeah, it's in my bookshelf right over there.
If you're going to leave something to somebody in your will, my darling, I'm just going to throw that out there.
Okay.
Last but not, well, Betty White.
Oh, Betty. Betty is everybody's favorite, and she deserves to be. She is everything that you think that you want her to be. She's all of that and more. And you just can't work with a more lovely, smart, and funny woman.
I don't think you get to be in this business as long as she has without being kind and smart.
That's right. That's right. A lot of people think that you can, but no, the ones that aren't, the reputation gets around very quickly. We all know in the business who are the ones that are going to give you trouble.
Enough about me. My last person I want to ask you about, my darling Diana, is the wonderful Ethel Merman.
Oh, well, I can't say I had a close relationship with her in terms of friendship, but I did have a relationship with her in the dressing room. She was appearing in an awards show. This is later in life.
Oh,
Oh yes.
so
And
like Love Boat Ethel Merman, like Love
oh
Boat.
yeah. And so I was called to her dressing room, and she was there in her corset and her girdle. Yeah, stars in their underwear. And she said, "Come on in, honey. Take a handful and push it down." She wanted the flesh that was a little muffin toppy, you know.
If I had a nickel for every time a celebrity told me to grab a handful. Oh, my darling, I have so thoroughly enjoyed you. Thank you so much for doing this. The book is Stars in Their Underwear, and it's available on Amazon.
Mm-hmm.
And
or Barnes and Noble, or any online, you know.
I bought it and downloaded it onto my iPad because it's nice to have a pad that doesn't need an adhesive. After all these years, my darling, I'm here to tell you I forgive you for taking my role in the producers and keeping me out of stardom, my darling. I don't blame you anymore, but you are a delight. Thank you for being here, my darling.
Thank you.
You are lovely. Now, how do I stop recording?